My name is Emma Thompson. I am 34 years old, and by the time I reached the front desk of the mountain resort, I had already spent 6 hours traveling for what my family called our Thanksgiving tradition. The clerk searched the reservation twice, then looked at me with visible discomfort. "I'm sorry, Ms. Thompson. There isn't a room under your name." Before I could ask another question, my older brother stepped forward, holding his phone as if he were recording a joke for social media. "There's no mistake," he said loudly. "We reserved rooms for me, my wife, and my child. Mom and Dad have theirs too. We're the real family." His wife laughed. My parents stared at the floor. Their little boy looked from me to them, confused. Several guests near the lobby fireplace had gone silent, and my brother seemed to enjoy every second of it. I did not argue. I did not ask why no one had warned me. I did not remind them that our grandfather had paid for the entire trip, or that I had rearranged a major project at work to be there. I simply tightened my hand around my suitcase and said, "Then I'll leave." My brother's smile faltered. "Don't be dramatic. You can find somewhere nearby." "I already have," I replied. "It's called home." I walked out before anyone could stop me. 3 hours later, while I sat alone near my airport gate, my phone showed 38 missed calls, 12 voicemails, and a family group chat moving so fast I could not read it. Then one message appeared from my grandfather. After I opened it, every call changed from angry demands to desperate begging. But by then, it was already too late. Before I tell you what my grandfather wrote, and why my family's entire life began collapsing before my flight even boarded, tell me what time it is where you are, and where you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. My taxi had barely cleared the resort entrance when the first call came through. It was my brother, Marcus. I declined it. He called again immediately, then a third time. On the fourth attempt, he switched to the family group call, and I answered only because I heard my 8-year-old nephew crying in the background. "Emma, turn the car around!" Marcus snapped before I could speak. "You're embarrassing everyone." His wife, Sarah, cut in from somewhere beside him. "We were trying to make the trip comfortable for the people who actually have responsibilities. You're single. You can book your own room." Then my mother added, in the flat tone she had used throughout my childhood, "Your brother has a wife and child. Their needs come first." My father said nothing. That silence hurt more than the insults because it confirmed what I had already understood in the lobby. This was not a misunderstanding. It was a decision they had all accepted. I looked through the taxi window at the resort shrinking behind us and felt the old instinct to defend myself. I could have reminded them that I earned more than Marcus and Sarah combined. I could have mentioned that I had paid off my student loans without help, built a 6-figure investment portfolio, and purchased my Seattle condo with my own savings. I could have listed every emergency I had quietly handled for the family, from arranging my father's specialist appointment to correcting the tax documents Marcus had nearly ignored. But none of that would have changed their definition of real family. In their minds, independence had made me convenient to neglect. Marcus's voice rose. "Liam is upset. He thought you were staying with us." That was when Liam spoke, small and uncertain. "Aunt Emma, are you mad at me?" My anger disappeared for 1 second. "No, sweetheart. None of this is your fault." Sarah grabbed the phone. "Then prove it. Come back." "No," I said. "I'm going home." Marcus laughed without humor. "Grandpa paid for this trip. You don't get to ruin it because nobody gave you a free suite." The hypocrisy was almost impressive. Our grandfather, Walter Thompson, had paid for nearly everything Marcus considered proof of his own success. He covered part of Marcus's mortgage, Liam's private school tuition, the lease on their luxury SUV, and several temporary monthly transfers that had continued for almost 6 years. He also subsidized my parents' expensive retirement community and their supplemental insurance. The annual family trip was supposed to be his attempt to keep us connected. He had asked me personally to attend, saying he was too tired to travel that year, but wanted photographs of everyone together. What Marcus did not know was that Grandpa had been questioning the arrangement for months. During a visit to Seattle in September, he had shown me a spreadsheet of family payments and asked whether I thought the support was helping anyone become stable. I told him the truth. It was keeping them comfortable, not responsible. He had sighed and said, "Money can rescue a person from one bad season. If it rescues them from every consequence, it becomes a cage." At the time, I assumed he was speaking generally. Sitting in that taxi, I realized he had already been preparing to act. After ending the group call, I ordered coffee at an airport drive-thru and asked the driver to wait while I called Grandpa. He answered on the second ring. I gave him only the facts: the missing reservation, Marcus's comment, Sarah's laughter, my parents' silence, and my decision to leave. I did not cry. I did not ask him to punish anyone. He was quiet for several seconds. Then he asked, "Did any of them try to stop you?" "No." "Did any of them apologize?" "No." "And the boy?" I told Liam it wasn't his fault. Grandpa exhaled slowly. "Good. Children should not carry the debts of adults." I heard a keyboard clicking on his end. "Grandpa, what are you doing?" "Reviewing decisions I should have made earlier. I don't want you doing anything because you think I need revenge." "This is not revenge, Emma," he said. "It is accounting." The line went silent again. Then he added, "Go to the airport lounge, eat something. Do not answer them for the next 3 hours." "Why 3 hours?" "Because by then, they will understand what the word useless actually costs." He ended the call before I could question him. I stared at the dark screen, unsettled by how calm he had sounded. Outside, snow began gathering along the curb. Inside the taxi, my phone lit up again with Marcus's name, then Sarah's, then my mother's. I switched it to silent and watched the resort disappear completely behind us. At the airport, I found a seat in the lounge, opened my laptop, and checked the portfolio app I used every morning. The numbers were ordinary. My retirement accounts were funded. My emergency savings could cover more than a year of expenses. The calm green figures on the screen looked almost unreal beside the chaos flashing across my phone. Marcus sent a photograph of Liam sitting on the edge of a hotel bed with his head down. The message beneath it read, "Look what you're doing to him." Sarah followed with a voice note accusing me of sabotaging her Thanksgiving post. My mother emailed a list of nearby hotels, all expensive but available, and wrote, "You can clearly afford one, so stop acting wounded." My father finally spoke in the group chat. "Family requires sacrifice." I typed a response, deleted it, and closed the conversation. They did not want a solution. They wanted my compliance. 20 minutes later, Grandpa sent a calendar invitation titled "Immediate Family Financial Review." Every adult in the family was included. The meeting would begin in 15 minutes. Marcus called me 7 times before it started. On the 8th, he left a voicemail. "What did you tell him?" "Emma, whatever you said, fix it. Right now." I joined the video call without turning on my camera. Grandpa appeared from his study, wearing reading glasses and holding a printed folder. Marcus and Sarah were together in their suite. My parents sat side by side in theirs. The confidence they had displayed in the lobby had already disappeared. Grandpa began without greeting anyone. "For 2 years, I have asked each household to prepare a plan for becoming financially independent. Emma submitted hers even though she receives no assistance from me. The rest of you either ignored the request or sent incomplete information." Marcus leaned toward the screen. "This is Thanksgiving. Can we not make this into a business meeting? You made it a business matter when you used money I provided to decide who counted as family." Sarah's face tightened. "We didn't mean it that way." I have watched the lobby video. The room went still. I had forgotten the resort's security cameras. Grandpa explained that the hotel manager, an old business contact, had called him after the confrontation because the reservation had been charged to Grandpa's corporate travel account. The manager had reviewed the footage after a staff member reported a guest being publicly humiliated. Marcus's performance, phone raised, voice loud, smile obvious, had been recorded from two angles. Grandpa opened the folder. Marcus, over the last 12 months, I paid $96,000 toward your mortgage, $28,000 for Liam's school, $21,000 for vehicle expenses, and $42,000 in direct transfers. That is $187,000, not including this trip. Marcus went pale. Sarah turned toward him. You told me the transfers were less than half that. Grandpa continued. David and Linda, I paid $132,000 toward your retirement community, insurance, travel, and household expenses. You have also signed a contract requiring a further $180,000 by December 15th. You did so without confirming that I would fund it. My father swallowed. You said you would help. I said I would review it after receiving your budget. I never received one. My mother leaned forward. Walter, this is about Emma being upset. We can apologize. There is no reason to threaten everyone's security. Grandpa's expression hardened. Emma asked me for nothing. This decision is mine. He shared his screen. An email draft appeared with a formal notice attached. Effective December 1st, all recurring transfers would stop. The resort charges for rooms already occupied would be paid, but no future discretionary expenses would be covered. Marcus would have 30 days to refinance or assume full responsibility for the mortgage. My parents would need to renegotiate or cancel their retirement community contract. Grandpa would continue paying only Liam's basic medical coverage for 6 months, directly to the insurer, because he refused to use a child as leverage. Marcus stood so quickly his chair hit the wall. You can't do this. We'll lose the house by January. You earn $74,000 a year, Grandpa replied. You purchased a house requiring more than $9,000 a month because you assumed my money had no end. Sarah began crying. Please, I know what happened in the lobby looked terrible, but we can fix it. Emma, say something. I turned on my camera. What would you like me to say? That you forgive us. I haven't heard an apology. I'm sorry, she said immediately. We're all sorry. Marcus stared at me. Fine. I shouldn't have made the joke. It wasn't a joke. His jaw tightened. What do you want from me? Nothing. That is the point. My mother's voice cracked. Emma, our deposit could be forfeited. Our insurance costs will destroy us. Grandpa interrupted. Your fear is not evidence that Emma has wronged you. It is evidence that you built your lives around money you did not earn. He pressed send. A notification appeared on every screen. The decision was official. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then everyone spoke at once. Marcus demanded another month. Sarah begged for Liam's tuition. My parents warned that stress could damage their health. Grandpa listened until the noise became incoherent, then muted them all. Tonight, he said, you called one self-supporting member of this family useless while standing inside a vacation she helped make possible, simply by never asking me to rescue her. You confused dependence with importance. You will now have the opportunity to learn the difference. He ended the meeting. Almost instantly, my phone filled with calls again. This time, the messages were not telling me to come back for Thanksgiving. They were asking me to save their house, their school, their cars, and their retirement. I closed my laptop as the boarding announcement began. 3 hours earlier, they had watched me leave without concern. Now they were begging me to return, not because they missed me, but because they believed I could restore the money. Have you ever imagined how quickly contempt can turn into panic when the person being dismissed finally stops protecting everyone from consequences? My flight landed in Seattle shortly after midnight. By the time I reached my condo, there were 114 unread messages waiting for me. Marcus had moved through every stage of panic in a single evening. His first voicemails were angry. He accused me of manipulating Grandpa, destroying Thanksgiving, and humiliating him in front of Sarah. The next ones were strategic. He offered to pay for my room, upgrade me to a suite, and post a public apology. By the final messages, his voice had become unsteady. Emma, please. The mortgage payment is due next week. I don't have enough cash. Just tell Grandpa you misunderstood. Sarah's messages were worse because they were more honest. She admitted they had nearly $40,000 in credit card debt that Marcus did not fully know about. She had used one card to make minimum payments on another, assuming Grandpa's monthly transfer would eventually cover everything. Their SUV lease was 2 months behind. Liam's school required the next semester's tuition before Christmas. I know what I said was cruel, she wrote, but please don't let Liam lose his school because I made one mistake. It had not been one mistake. It had been years of choices protected by someone else's money. My parents called from the resort business center because, according to my mother, they were too distressed to sleep. My father explained that they had already paid a non-refundable $30,000 deposit toward the retirement community and had expected Grandpa to cover the remaining $180,000. If they withdrew, they would lose the deposit. If they stayed, they could not afford the balance. My mother said, "You know we are too old to start over." "You are 63 and 65, I replied. "You are not helpless." Her tone sharpened immediately. "This is exactly why people think you're cold." There it was, the familiar punishment for refusing to solve a problem I had not created. I ended the call. Black Friday morning arrived with gray Seattle rain and a calendar full of work. I showered, dressed, and joined my team's 8:30 meeting from home. I was leading a financial planning project for a medical technology division, and our year-end forecast needed revision before Monday. For 90 minutes, I discussed operating margins, staffing costs, and risk controls, while my personal phone vibrated face down on the desk. The contrast was almost absurd. At work, people respected me because I prepared for consequences. In my family, preparation had always been treated as proof that I needed less consideration. At noon, Grandpa called. He told me his attorney had confirmed that every payment was a voluntary gift and could legally stop without notice. He had also discovered that Marcus had used Grandpa's name as an informal guarantee while negotiating the mortgage, even though Grandpa had never signed anything. The bank had not committed fraud, but Marcus had created the impression that family support was permanent. Now the lender wanted updated proof of income. "Did you know he was doing that?" I asked. "No," Grandpa said. "That is why this is no longer only about the hotel." He also said my parents had contacted 3 relatives, claiming I was pressuring him to rewrite his will. Grandpa had answered by sending those relatives a copy of the financial review notice and the resort footage. I felt a flicker of satisfaction, followed immediately by discomfort. "I don't want the whole family watching that video. They already heard a version in which you attacked everyone for no reason," he said. "Truth does not become cruelty because it embarrasses the liar." That afternoon, Marcus posted a vague statement online about toxic relatives who use elderly family members for control. He deleted it less than an hour later, after 2 cousins commented that Grandpa had been supporting his household for years. Sarah removed every Thanksgiving photograph from her account. My parents checked out of the resort a day early because they could no longer enjoy the trip, though the rooms were already paid for. At 6, a florist delivered an enormous arrangement to my building. The card read, "We are sorry. Please call Grandpa. Love, your family." No one mentioned the room. No one mentioned Marcus's words. Even their apology was an invoice. I left the flowers in the lobby for anyone who wanted them and went upstairs. I made dinner, transferred my usual monthly amount into my investment accounts, and reviewed my budget for December. Nothing in my life had changed. That stability did not make me feel superior. It made me understand how dangerous my family's dependence had become. Before bed, I listened to one final voicemail. Marcus sounded exhausted. "I know you think you won, but when Liam asks why we have to leave his school, I'm telling him it started with you." For the first time since the lobby, my hands shook. Not because I believed him, but because he had found the only weapon that could still reach me, an innocent child. I saved the voicemail and sent it to Grandpa. Then I blocked Marcus's number. Over the next 2 weeks, the family crisis became measurable. Marcus and Sarah listed the SUV for transfer, canceled 2 club memberships, and put their house on the market after the bank confirmed that his salary alone could not support the loan. The asking price was lower than what they owed once fees, and a second home equity line were included. Sarah's hidden credit card balance turned out to be closer to $56,000. Marcus responded by examining every purchase she had made, while she responded by showing him years of messages in which he encouraged her to keep up appearances because his clients followed her online. Their arguments grew so loud that Liam began spending afternoons with Sarah's parents. Marcus kept his regular sales job, but he started delivering food at night and on weekends. One of my cousins saw him outside a downtown apartment building wearing a delivery jacket, and later told me the extended family group chat had gone silent. Marcus had spent years presenting himself as a successful provider. Now everyone understood that the cars, vacations, and private school had been financed by Grandpa. The work itself was not humiliating. Honest work never is. What humiliated Marcus was being seen without the image he had built. My parents met with a financial counselor and withdrew from the retirement community contract. They lost the $30,000 deposit, sold several pieces of designer furniture, and began searching for a smaller condominium outside the most expensive part of Florida. My mother sent me photographs of every item they sold, as if each empty space were evidence I should feel guilty. My father's messages were different. He had begun calculating how long their actual savings would last, and admitted they had not reviewed their expenses in years. "We assumed Walter would always cover the gap," he wrote. "That was irresponsible." It was the first statement from either parent that did not include the word but. At work, my division approved the forecast I had led, and my manager asked me to take responsibility for a larger team in January. I should have felt proud. Instead, I kept thinking about Liam. I remembered him at 5 years old, sitting beside me at Thanksgiving and asking why money in a savings account could grow. I had drawn a tiny tree on a napkin and explained compound interest using apples. Marcus had laughed and said, "Don't turn my kid into a boring accountant." Liam had kept the napkin. The memory pushed me into my first therapy appointment. I told the therapist I was not sorry for leaving, but I felt responsible for the consequences. She asked a question that stayed with me. "Did you create the instability, or did your departure reveal it?" I knew the answer intellectually. Emotionally, it was harder. 3 days later, Sarah emailed me without copying Marcus. She said she had contacted an attorney about a legal separation. She did not ask me to reverse Grandpa's decision. Instead, she admitted that the lobby incident had not been spontaneous. Marcus had told her before I arrived that no room had been reserved for me, and that I would probably pay for one rather than cause conflict. Sarah had laughed because she believed he was right. "We counted on your dignity to protect our cruelty," she wrote. "I am ashamed of that." I read the sentence several times. It was the first apology that named the actual harm. I replied with 2 lines. "Thank you for telling the truth. Please keep Liam out of the blame." That evening, Marcus found a way around the block by calling from a different number. His speech was slow, and I could hear traffic behind him. "Sarah's leaving me," he said. "Mom and Dad blame me. Grandpa won't take my calls. Are you happy now?" "No." "You should be. You got everything." "I had everything I needed before the trip." He laughed bitterly. "You always thought you were better than us." "No, Marcus. I thought I was responsible for myself. You decided that made me useless." He became quiet. Then the anger returned. "Because of you, our family is destroyed." "No. Because nobody told you no until now. You believed consequences were betrayal." He cursed at me. I ended the call and blocked the new number. The next morning, Grandpa forwarded me a handwritten note he had received from Liam. The letters leaned unevenly across a page from a school notebook. Grandpa Walter, why is everybody fighting? Did Aunt Emma leave because I am not her real family? I stared at that sentence until the screen blurred. Marcus had done exactly what he threatened. He had allowed a child to believe the fracture belonged to him. I called Grandpa immediately. Together, we decided that any future help for Liam would be placed in a protected education trust that neither parent could use for housing, cars, or debt. I also wrote Liam a letter. I told him he was loved, that adults sometimes made harmful choices, and that nothing happening was his fault. I did not criticize his parents. I did not explain the money. I simply promised that being related was not what made someone real. Treating people with care did. By mid-December, the house had received one low offer. Sarah had moved with Liam to her parents' home, and Marcus was alone in rooms full of furniture they could no longer afford. The family kept telling me I had caused a collapse. The truth was harsher. I had only stopped standing underneath it. Christmas arrived quietly in Seattle. My mornings began with dark skies, coffee, and the glow of spreadsheets before sunrise. My days ended with therapy, long walks, or calls from Grandpa. Between those moments, updates about Marcus arrived indirectly. Sarah had filed for divorce after learning he had opened another line of credit without telling her. The house sold through a short sale agreement that left them with no profit and damaged credit. Marcus moved into a studio apartment near his office, sold most of the furniture, and continued delivering food after work. The worst update came 2 days before Christmas. Marcus arrived at Sarah's parents' house for his scheduled evening with Liam after drinking. Sarah refused to let Liam leave with him and called the police when Marcus began shouting in the driveway. No one was arrested, but the incident was documented. At an emergency family court hearing, Sarah received temporary primary custody, and Marcus's visits became supervised until he completed counseling and demonstrated sobriety. He called Grandpa the same afternoon and asked for an emergency loan to hire a more aggressive attorney. Grandpa refused. According to Grandpa, Marcus said, "You're choosing Emma over your own grandson." Grandpa answered, "I am choosing the safety of my great-grandson over the pride of an adult man." My parents stopped defending Marcus after that. They had moved into a modest 2-bedroom condominium and were learning to live on their pensions and savings. My father began doing bookkeeping for a local contractor 3 mornings a week. My mother complained less after joining a community health plan and realizing that many retirees lived comfortably without marble lobbies or private dining rooms. They did not suddenly become different people, but their messages changed. They stopped asking me to fix Marcus. They began apologizing for specific things: the tuition they paid for him while telling me to find scholarships, the birthdays they missed because I was the easy child, and the silence in the resort lobby. I accepted the apologies without pretending trust had returned. Therapy taught me that forgiveness and access were separate decisions. My own life moved in the opposite direction. I received the promotion my manager had discussed, along with responsibility for a new financial strategy team. My investment portfolio passed a milestone I had been working toward for years. On weekends, I hiked outside the city with my friend Maya, who never once asked how much my condo cost or whether my family approved of my choices. The ordinary peace of those days felt more luxurious than any resort. Grandpa sent me a small Christmas package. Inside was a pearl pendant that had belonged to my grandmother and a note in his precise handwriting. "You did not break this family. You stopped lying about where it was already broken. Independence is not the absence of love. It is the freedom to give love without being controlled by fear." I cried then, not from regret, but from relief. For Liam, I mailed a science kit, a book about saving money, and the pearl-colored bookmark he had admired the previous year. I sent everything through Grandpa so Marcus could not use the gift as an excuse to contact me. In my letter, I wrote, "Real family never asks you to prove your love by accepting disrespect." On Christmas night, Grandpa called to say Liam had read the sentence aloud twice. Then he asked whether I thought Marcus would ever understand it. I looked out at the rain on my windows and answered honestly, maybe, but understanding does not erase what happened. That was the lesson I was still learning. A person could change, apologize, and become better, and I could still decide that the safest place for them was outside my life. By the end of January, the crisis was no longer loud. It had become a new reality. My parents lived within a written monthly budget. Sarah found part-time administrative work while Liam adjusted to public school. Grandpa finalized the education trust, naming an independent trustee and requiring that every payment go directly to schools or medical providers. Marcus remained in the studio apartment, attended court-ordered counseling, and saw Liam under supervision on Saturday afternoons. Then an email arrived from him with no demands, no copied relatives, and no request for money. Emma, I called you useless because your independence made me feel small. Every time Grandpa praised you, I heard proof that I had failed. I built a life I could not afford, and instead of admitting it, I treated your restraint like weakness. At the resort, I expected you to pay for another room and protect me from looking cruel. When you left, I blamed you because blaming you was easier than seeing what I had become. I am sorry. I know that does not restore anything. For once, Marcus had written the truth without attaching a price to it. I waited 3 days before replying. I accept that you understand what you did. I hope you keep doing the work for Liam's sake. I am not ready to have a relationship with you, and I will not discuss Grandpa's decisions. He answered, I understand. That was all. Some people might call my response cold. I call it a boundary. An apology can acknowledge a debt, but it does not force the injured person to reopen the account. In February, Grandpa visited Seattle. We had dinner in a small neighborhood restaurant instead of somewhere designed to impress strangers. He told me he had revised his estate plan, not to reward me for leaving the resort, but to prevent future dependence. My parents would receive a controlled income fund. Liam's trust would remain protected. Marcus would receive nothing he could access until he demonstrated several years of financial stability and sobriety. Grandpa also donated part of his estate to scholarship programs for students supporting themselves through college. You once told me money should create freedom, I said. It should, he replied, but only when it is paired with character. After dinner, we walked back to my condo through light Seattle rain. I thought about the woman who had stood in that resort lobby holding a suitcase while her family decided she was less real because she needed them less. She had believed walking away meant losing everyone. In reality, it showed her exactly which relationships had ever been safe. I did not get the Thanksgiving trip they promised. I got something more valuable. The end of a role I had been forced to play since childhood. I was no longer the capable daughter who could be ignored, the successful sister who should pay her own way, or the quiet aunt whose love could be used as leverage. I was simply Emma, and I was allowed to leave any room where my dignity was treated as optional. Money can purchase a suite, a luxury car, a private school, and a convincing family photograph. It cannot purchase discipline, loyalty, or self-respect. Marcus lost his house, his marriage, his reputation, and temporary custody because he built every part of his life on borrowed money and borrowed importance. I did not take those things from him. His choices did. On the first clear morning of spring, I placed the unused resort itinerary in the shredder. Then I opened my balcony door and let the cold air into the room. The city below was wet, bright, and beginning again. Sometimes the most powerful revenge is not destroying the people who hurt you. It is refusing to remain beneath the weight of their consequences. Would you have returned to the resort to protect the family, or would you have walked away as I did? Tell me in the comments. Your story might be the reason someone else finally realizes that setting a boundary is not betrayal.
We hope the story brought you emotion, suspense, and thoughtful lesson. Everything in this video is fictional and created only for dramatic storytelling and educational value. We hope it reminds you that you can care about someone deeply and still decide that loving them up close is hurting you too much. Sometimes distance is not the end of love, it is the beginning of self protection.